Absolutely. Here's a 500-word story built around the topic. If you're an older woman and you wake up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., do these five things, told in a relatable, informative, and empowering narrative style. Barbara's early morning awakening. At 67, Barbara considered herself a good sleeper. At least, she used to. Lately, she'd been waking up around 3:30 a.m., her mind suddenly alert, her body wide awake, with no hope of drifting back to sleep. At first, she thought it was a one-off. Then it became a pattern. The clock would glow with that eerie early morning light, and Barbara would lie there, staring at the ceiling, wondering what was wrong. Tired of starting each day groggy and frustrated, she brought it up at her weekly book club. To her surprise, nearly every woman around the table nodded in agreement. "Oh, yes," said Diane. "The 3 to 5 a.m. window. I call it my second shift." That got a laugh, but also a realization. This wasn't just Barbara. It was common. Back home, she began to do her research and found that waking between 3 and 5 a.m. is particularly common in older women. Hormonal changes, blood sugar fluctuations, stress, and even deeper emotional patterns tied to aging and purpose could all be part of it. But the advice that helped her most wasn't about fixing it. It was about using it. Barbara adopted 5 simple habits that transformed her early wake-ups from burdens into blessings. 1. Breathe deeply and stretch. Instead of panicking or reaching for her phone, she started with a few deep belly breaths and gentle stretches in bed. It calmed her nervous system and reduced the anxiety that usually kicked in the moment she saw the clock. 2. Journal for clarity. She placed a notebook by her bed and began writing whatever came to mind. Dreams, worries, random thoughts. She found that those early morning hours often revealed insights she didn't notice during the day. 3. Drink warm water or herbal tea. A small thermos by her nightstand became her secret weapon. A few sips of chamomile or lemon water soothed her body and signaled to her mind that she was being cared for. 4. Meditate or pray. Whether she used a simple breathing app or whispered quiet prayers, Barbara found those early hours to be a powerful spiritual space. It grounded her, gave her peace, and sometimes even sent her back to sleep. 5. Get up and move, gently. On mornings when she still couldn't sleep, she stopped fighting it. She'd rise, light a candle, do some light yoga, or listen to calming music. She called it her sacred hour, and it started her day with intention instead of irritation. Over time, Barbara stopped dreading 3 a.m. She began to see it as a window, a quiet space where the rest of the world was still, and her own voice was loudest. Her mood improved, her energy returned, and her sleep even started to normalize. Now, when friends mention the dreaded early wake-up, she smiles knowingly and says, "Oh, 3 a.m.? That's when the magic happens." Let me know if you'd like a 2-sentence version of this story for a voiceover promo. Absolutely. Here's a 500-word continuation of Barbara's story, diving deeper into how her early wake-up routine began to reshape her life and inspire others. As the weeks passed, Barbara's new 3 to 5 a.m. ritual evolved into something more than just a coping strategy. It became a time of personal transformation. She began to look forward to the stillness of those early hours, a period when the world was quiet and expectations fell away. Her journal, once filled with scattered thoughts and sleepless frustration, now held pages of reflection, gratitude lists, even poems she didn't know she had in her. What had started as restlessness became a gateway to rediscovery. "I didn't realize how much I'd been missing myself," she wrote one morning, as soft light crept through her window. When the noise stops, I hear who I am again. Barbara started making subtle changes to her daytime life, too. She noticed that by honoring her early wake-up time, she was more present during the day. She stopped rushing her mornings and began incorporating more mindfulness into everyday tasks. Brewing her tea with care, watering her plants slowly, even walking without her usual headphones. She began sleeping more soundly, too, not always through the night, but without the resistance that had once made her feel defeated. Waking up early no longer felt like something broken. It felt intentional. Her friends noticed the difference. "You're glowing," one said during their weekly brunch. Barbara chuckled. "Turns out insomnia's just rebranded spiritual growth." She shared what she was learning, not as a prescription, but as an invitation. If you're waking up at 3 a.m., maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's your body asking you to listen. Soon, her small circle of friends began experimenting with their own versions of Barbara's 5-step morning practice. Diane took up painting in the early hours. Marcia, who had always wanted to write her memoirs, started typing chapters in the quiet before dawn. Even Janet, the most skeptical of the bunch, admitted she'd begun meditating instead of scrolling through her phone when she woke up too early. They called themselves the Dawn Club and began texting each other short messages or photos before sunrise. A glowing candle, a steaming mug, a line from a dream. One particularly meaningful morning, Barbara sat at her kitchen table, watching the sky shift from black to indigo. She realized that what once felt like loneliness in the night had become connection with herself, with time, and with others. The hours between 3 and 5 had become her most sacred. She'd learned to meet her body with compassion instead of control, and that shift echoed into every part of her life. Waking early wasn't just a quirk of aging, it was a gift wrapped in quiet. And in that gift, Barbara had found healing, creativity, peace, and purpose. So now, when someone sighs and says, "I keep waking up at 3 a.m., Barbara doesn't offer sleep remedies. She offers hope. "Maybe," she says gently, "it's your soul knocking. Maybe it's time to answer." Let me know if you'd like a voiceover version of this message. Of course. Here's a 200-word paragraph to further round out Barbara's story and leave it on an uplifting, inspiring note. As time went on, Barbara realized that waking between 3 and 5 a.m. wasn't just a phase, it was a calling. The more she leaned into it, the more in tune she became with her inner world. She began writing letters to her younger self, reflecting on moments of joy, regret, and growth. Sometimes she'd pull out old photo albums, remembering the woman she used to be and honoring how far she'd come. These small, quiet rituals grounded her in a deep sense of self-acceptance. The world often told older women to slow down, fade into the background, or keep their discomfort to themselves. But Barbara had found her voice in the dark, and it was stronger than ever. "This time of life isn't about disappearing," she wrote one morning. "It's about deepening." Her friends continued to grow with her. Their early mornings no longer filled with frustration, but with a quiet joy they hadn't known they needed. Barbara had transformed an inconvenience into a gift, a window of time that reminded her she was still changing, still becoming. And every morning, as the sky shifted from darkness to light, she remembered, sometimes the most important conversations we'll ever have happen before the sun comes up. Let me know if you'd like a condensed version for an AI voiceover.